It's coming up to 20 minutes to 1. Right, if you've got student debt, something big is about to happen. On Thursday, your outstanding balance is going to increase by 7.1%. This is the biggest increase in decades. It's left students, graduates uncertain about how to pay the debt back. Claire Ripster, you're someone who's got a bit of skin in this game because I understand you've graduated, but you're still carrying debt, Claire. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. What's your HECS debt at the moment?
I think it's at about 42,000 at the moment, which, it's not the highest out there, but it's definitely something that weighs on my mind.
Yeah, I imagine it would. Tell me about when you started uni and what your thoughts were about debt at the time you started.
Yeah, look, when I went straight to uni after high school, when we were in high school, we were told, just go to university, it's fine, you'll walk straight into a job once you have a degree, and that HECS debt, don't worry about it, it's just going to come out of your pay and it'll be paid off in no time. But that really wasn't the reality. The whole reality was a lot of the degrees that we were told that we could go and do, and you'd walk straight into a job, didn't really exist. You either had to go and study further or change career paths altogether. So I've only worked for 8 months in the actual industry that I studied, which was nutrition. I ended up having to do more study and become a personal trainer and run my own personal training and nutrition business, but that still wasn't enough to, be able to pay off that debt.
My goodness. So you've got a Bachelor of Science in Nutrition. You've got a HECS debt of about $42,000. You're still paying it off. It's about to go up on Thursday, and you don't work in the industry that is actually connected to the debt that you're carrying for the study that you did. You're in the beauty industry at the moment, and working, but caring as well. You've got a little bub.
I do. He's about to turn 1 on Thursday.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Congratulations. But how has becoming a parent affected your ability to service that debt as well?
Well, yeah. How am I supposed to pay off a giant HECS debt when I'm only working 2 days a week? It's just this looming weight that makes me really nervous every time I think about it. So I just try and not think about it.
I'm thinking you're also probably trying to save money, the cost of living going up, but also I understand you're saving money for a house.
Yeah, and we live in Sydney, so it's going to cost an arm and a leg to get a house deposit. So I'm kind of weighing up, what do I do? Am I supposed to take all the really hard-earned money that we've just struggled to save for a house deposit and put it on a HECS debt, and then start the saving process all again, which will put us back many years? Or do I just let that HECS debt just keep piling up?
Do you just let that HECS debt keep piling up? Because that's one of the other things about a HECS debt. It is slightly different to other kinds of debt. What do you understand about what would happen should you not pay your HECS debt off, Claire?
My understanding is that it just keeps getting more and more debt on it, and it just sits there until the day I die. I don't know what happens with it afterwards, but
yeah.
Hopefully I don't find out anytime soon.
Well, yes, but let's find out a little bit more about the HECS debt. Claire, I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Stay with us. Claire Ripster's with you on ABC Brisbane and Gold Coast. Claire's a student. She's graduated. She's got a $42,000 help debt. It's going to go up because all of these debts will go up from Thursday. So what do you do about it? At this point, I'd like to introduce to you someone who works in the financial planning sector, Phil McGann, Director of Claritude Financial Planning. We'll just say up front, Phil, that any advice that you offer this afternoon is general in nature and you're advised to seek your own personalised individual
Very much so.
financial
Very much
advice.
so. I mean, it's great we've got a caller on the line, but it's not advice for Claire. It's just in general. We're talking for everyone.
But let's talk about the HECS debt first up. Like, it's the debt you accrue when you undertake university study
Correct.
in Australia.
Correct. Yeah.
Undergraduate and postgraduate?
Yes, both. So you can basically apply a HECS and help debt to both. And the government effectively allows you to sort of pay for the part of your course that allows you to sort of do that study without having to pay up front. And the idea is the government will lend part of the money to you, goes through the university sector, and then you end up with a debt at the end of it that you have to pay back through the tax system when your income hits a certain level. So you don't have to pay it when you're still at uni or when you first get out and your income's very low. It kicks in from once you start earning $48,000 and then it rises from there. So the more you earn, the more you've got to pay back. That's how it works. And it's a debt, but it's not a loan as such. What they do call it, it's an obligation you have to pay, and it's indexed each year. It's rather than an interest rate is applied. And this is where the timing of this issue that we're talking about today comes in, 1st of June.
Okay, so that's a critical point. It's not a loan that has an interest rate attached to it, but it indexes in line with the consumer price index.
Correct. And 2 years ago, that indexation was 0.6%. So it wasn't really worthwhile doing much with your debt. You just leave it sitting in the background. It'll sort itself out as you go on and pay it through the tax system. Inflation's high, and this is a consequence of that. 1st of June, it's going up 7.1%, which for someone with a big debt is a lot of money that will accrue on top of that debt you already own.
Okay. Now, as Claire has said, there's the question about what happens to that debt. What if you don't do anything about it? What if you just let it grow and grow? What happens to the HECS debt?
Basically what happens is you pay it through the tax system. So if you don't actually earn enough income to pay anything back, if you only earn 30 or 40 grand through the rest of your working life, it just grows and grows and grows. You die, it extinguishes.
It dies with you?
It does. So you don't actually have to pay it back.
Unlike a mortgage or something?
Correct. But it's paid through the tax system. So the chances are if you've got a higher degree, if you've got further qualifications, you will start earning more money and you will actually have to pay this down over time. That's the way it will work through. It cuts in at $48,000, which is not a huge income in the big scheme of things for someone with a higher qualification. And as we go on from here, there's nothing stopping the government dropping that down. It used to be a lot higher than that.
So the government might say, okay, if you earn $20,000 a year, you've got to start paying us back money.
That's what they could do.
For your education.
That's basically how these sorts of loans work. It used to be a lot higher. The cut-off point used to be a lot higher than 48,000. The previous government dropped it down to 48. This government could put it up higher or they could drop it down lower.
Claire Ribster, can I come back to you? Have you any questions for Phil at this point?
Not off the top of my head. I do just sort of wonder sometimes when they say, having the higher education means that, you're going to be able to earn a higher income. That's not necessarily true because sometimes there just aren't the jobs out there for those industries that you did get that. You were told you could do that qualification. So I think we need to look at our school systems and go back and have better conversations with students about what their options are after school.
One question I suppose I'd have, Claire, as well for yourself. You were saying you're saving for a deposit for a house in Sydney, which is obviously very expensive. Have you sort of approached a mortgage broker? Have you worked out what your capacity is? And has the bank taken into account the HECS that you do have?
Yeah, the chat that we have had so far has been that my HECS debt can actually stand in the way of us being able to go forward and get that.
Because it impacts your borrowing capacity effectively because they're looking at it saying, well, if you earn that much income enough to borrow this amount, well, hold on, the government needs 5% of that to actually pay or service the debt. So that comes off your borrowing capacity. And by the reverse of that, if you've got a deposit, do you sort of put some towards the HECS debt? How does that impact on your borrowing capacity? These are sort of conversations, I suppose, for you and your mortgage broker as well to see if it's worthwhile doing
But to pick up on the point that Claire made, and Claire, I'll come in here. I mean, I don't feel like anyone ever said anything like, hey, Kat, before you go to university and rack up a HECS debt, have a think about the way that'll affect your ability to purchase a home one day. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's Phil, this is obviously like in your wheelhouse, but I just feel like, as Claire says, are we having those conversations at the times we should be having them?
And as Claire said a moment ago as well, back to the schooling system, we don't have enough education in credit and finance and how things work, how credit cards work, all that, how to buy now, pay later works. We've spoken about that before online. And it's an issue because a lot of kids get out and they'd have no idea about these practical issues that impact on their borrowing capacity in this case and things like that.
Yeah. 1300 222 612 is the telephone number. That's 1300 222 612 if you'd like to join this conversation this afternoon. Maybe you're carrying a HECS debt. Maybe you're thinking, oh, it's going to go up, but I don't have the cash to pay it down. I'll just let it grow. Maybe you're finding that it is getting in the way of you doing things like taking out a mortgage to buy a home. And Phil, I will be asking you to sort of maybe offer any idea about what anyone could do before 1 June. I mean, it's a few days away. Is it too late? But before I do, I wanted to bring in Gareth at South Brisbane, because Gareth, you're a mature age student. What's your situation now with a HECS Help debt, and how will you be affected by the changes on Thursday?
Look, Kat, what happened was my wife actually suggested, in order to create more opportunity within my career space, that I could do an MBA. So I started off doing a business degree, got a couple of modules, and then was invited to participate in the MBA program and put that cost on the HECS. So I've racked out probably around about $50,000 or $60,000. Unfortunately, the MBA hasn't given me the opportunity to be at executive or director level yet. I'm still hopeful. I've still got a few years left to go in my career. But what I have been doing is I've been speaking to our tax agent. And when you apply for any new job, you've always got to tick that box on the tax declaration to ask, are you carrying a HECS debt? So far, every tax season that comes round, I'm paying off the equivalent of maybe a module. So we're looking maybe at around, say, $2,500, $3,000. Because I'm taxed at a higher rate, often I get back around about $500. Before the study, I was getting back a little bit more. So that contribution is chipping away. What will be interesting is this little extra increase that the government has included. I have no idea what impact that's going to have on my ability to pay it back quicker. But the bigger problem is as well, and it's back to this whole getting the right job thing. I was on the employment hamster wheel for about 7 years. Just because you have an MBA doesn't mean that you're going to get the job that you really want, because there are a multitude of factors that impact your ability to be employable based on the requirement from your employer. So the recruitment space is highly subjective at the moment. It is very, very difficult to actually break in. And I think that's what a lot of the new generation of people are finding. Get a degree and go and get this fantastic job. It's just simply not reality.
And this is what Claire was alluding to as well. Gareth, I'm glad you brought that insight, because we hear about people taking on the MBA to make themselves more competitive. I mean, Claire was describing her situation with an undergraduate degree, not finding the job at the end of it. Here's Gareth with the undergraduate and looking to get even more qualification to achieve even more professionally, and yet not exactly getting what was, anticipated. So, Phil McGann, just you were sort of making interesting facial expressions whilst listening to Gareth at South Brisbane. Why? What was going through your mind?
No, look, it's really a case of, as you say, trying to do certain further qualifications to get further in your career. Don't just listen to the educators, the university, or the people selling you the product. It's really got to be the other side of the employers. What is the employer looking for? Do they want, and future employers, is that what they were looking for, that you have an MBA or to have another degree to actually do it? Otherwise, you're just doing further and further study, incurring more and more debt, and it may not translate into a higher income at the other end of the scale. And here we are in a very low unemployment environment, an economy with full employment, it's 3.5%.
Yeah.
So if you're not earning a good income at this sort of level, what will it be like if unemployment goes the other way?
On ABC Radio Brisbane and Gold Coast, Gareth, thank you. Claire, thank you. My name's Kat. Phil McGann is with you, Director of Claritude Financial Planning. It's about 10 to 1 and we're talking about the way in which HECS debts, help debts, will change on Thursday. They're going up 7.1%, because whilst these debts associated with higher education aren't loans that have interest, they are debts that rise in relation to the consumer price index. CPI is going up, therefore the debt is going up. Phil, June 1, Thursday.
It's a bit close, isn't it?
It is a bit close.
It's a bit close. Look, the issue is this, that it does go up on the 1st of June, indexation. But practicalities, can you actually pay money in via your MyGov account into the portal and actually have it credited to your loan before the 1st of June? I'm not sure you can. It's very, very close. If you're very, very keen, or some of your listeners, people who've got debts or children or grandchildren or whatever, they need to do something today. They need to ring the ATO up and say, if I pay money in, will it get credited? Otherwise, you run the risk that the money goes in on the 2nd.
Yes.
And you've missed the indexation.
And you've missed it. You're just tipping the money into the bigger pit.
And the other thing is you're putting money into this and treat it as another debt, because if you have other debts out there, prioritising things, the interest rates might be higher if you've got some personal loans or credit cards or things like that. But also, if you're putting money into a mortgage, you can get it back. You put money into this, you can't get it back. You put $5,000 into this, it's not like they're going to let you draw on it. Yeah. Whereas if you put that into your mortgage, you can get it back next week.
And see, that's the tension as well, because as you said, it might stand in the way of you achieving things like mortgages, but also it's a debt that you don't have to pay it back in a way.
No, in a way. I mean,
in a way.
Look, right now it's 7.1% as of Thursday. 2 years ago it was 0.6%. This time next year, if inflation eases, it might be back to 4%, and then going forward it might be 2 or 3. At that stage, if inflation gets back under control, again, it's not a very expensive debt. So unless you've got the money to pay it all off, and to pay all of it off, because keep in mind, if you've got a debt of 20,000 and you've got 10, you still owe 10, and then you've still got to pay the interest on that. Yeah. So,
and who knows where CPI is going next.
We don't know.
Exactly.
We'll
so all of this underscores why it is so important, if you are affected by this, to seek out your own personalised financial advice.
Of course, and none of it today is at all very general.
Yeah, everyone's circumstances are different. But Sue, you're at Benowa. Your daughter's got a HECS debt. What are you thinking about? What's on your mind, Sue? Hi.
Oh, hi. Well, the situation is she worked for about 4 years straight out of uni, and she started to pay the debt back in the last 6 months because her wages had reached that sort of threshold. And then she went overseas, and she's been working in London for about 4 years now, and I'm not sure that she'll ever come back. She loves it there. So what happens now to her debt if she does come back or if she doesn't come back?
Well, this is the interesting thing. I'm not 100% sure, so I won't quote me on this, but it used to be the case if you left Australia and didn't work here again and not through the tax system, you may not have to pay it back. I think the government has changed the rules over the last few years to actually catch people up like that, and you need to actually still lodge some sort of income declaration here to pay some of that back. Again, it's a personal situation she'll have to chase up.
Sue, thank you. Just to come back to Claire. Now, Claire, you've obviously been really giving this significant thought, and you're having all sorts of conversations with people about it. What's your plan now? Are you thinking that you're going to try and chip in, or have you put in extra money onto your help debt to try and reduce that amount before June 1, or are you thinking you might just let it sit? Claire, what's the plan from here for you?
Yeah, look, if there's no urgency, I'll just let it sit. Why put myself further backwards in the Sydney housing market game if it's not something that I'm required, not quite required, but, having to pay back without a debt collector knocking on my door.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, all the best with whatever it is that you do decide to do, Claire. Really appreciate that you took the time to share your story with us this afternoon. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Claire Ribster with you on ABC Brisbane and Queensland. Claire with a help debt, $42,000. It's going up June 1. Look, it's a complicated thing, isn't it, Phil McGann?
It really is, and it really pays to keep on top of things as much as possible and get good advice. In Claire's case, through her mortgage broker, how that would impact on her borrowing capacity, whether she pays some of that debt down. It's an interesting scenario, but it really does impact on other things that you don't think of when you sign up to uni.
And just to take it sort of at a macro level, I mean, who holds Australia's help debt and HECS debt? That's the government.
It's the government.
It's the federal government.
It's a federal government. It's just a
so that's
federal
a budget line.
It's a budget line. That's it. And
someone has to wear that.
The figures.
Cost.
I had a look at the figures last night. 3 million Australians owe to the federal government $48.5 billion. Wow. Average loan's about 25 grand. A lot of money. And that's why the government's not giving up the indexation. There was calls the other day from the Greens to say, well, why don't we just wipe the indexation? 7% of $48 billion is a lot of money.
Okay, Phil McGann, you've given us lots to think about this afternoon. I really appreciate your insight.
Yeah, no problems with Kat. Always good to have a chat to callers as well.
Final thoughts, closing remarks.
Look, it's know the hierarchy of your debts, looking at the interest rates and just see where it's at and get some advice. Talk to people.
Thank you, Phil, for talking to us.
Thank you.